Hello and welcome back to the Tigers Down Under for another season. 2018-19 season almost underway, and I'm your host as always, Alex, to get us started for this season. And with me, I have Mitch.
Hi guys.
So we've been away for a little while. I know we sort of tailed off towards the end of last season. Very positive that we were able to stay in the league and go again this time around. And we were just talking before the show, Mitch. It feels a lot more positive coming into this season than it did last season. We'll get into the specifics of the signings in just a little bit, but first, just your overview of it. I mean, last summer, obviously, just relegated from the Premier League. Silver had gone. We got in Slutsky, which seemed a positive. But then not many players coming in, and we had our favourites in Maguire and Robertson on the way out, now starring at World Cups and Champions League finals. A little bit of a more optimistic mood this time around.
Yeah, I mean, considering the amount of players that we lost after last season as well, it's crazy to actually be happy at this stage of pre-season. Like we brought in 6 signings, we've got Tiger TV, we've got our kits early, and they're good too. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so really looking forward to the start of the season in a couple of weeks against Villa. You've mentioned there, so we have made 6 signings so far, and it was a bit of a surprise how quickly some of them came together because we signed Eric Lehigh from Forest quite early in the window, and it was pretty obvious we needed to strengthen our defence. Like we had, I think, essentially just Kingsley as a fit defender because McDonald and Mizook were both injured, so we had basically no fit defenders to start the season. So bringing in Lehigh as a right back was a great first one. But then all of a sudden, in the space of a few days, we signed Device from PSV, we signed Burke from West Ham, and we also signed Milinkovic from Genoa. So as kind of like a burst of signings, those first four, what did you make of them?
Well, yeah, I'm really excited for Milinkovic just because we've not really had a great consistent winger. I guess Bowen had a good season, but I can't really think of one that's been consistently good for a few seasons. And I'm not saying he's going to be good, but it's just exciting the prospect of it. And I watched that game where Hearts beat Celtic last season to end their
Oh yeah,
6-9 game unbeaten run, and he scored twice. And so
that's always good.
I knew the guy somehow. And when we're linked to a guy and I know his name, there's always a good sign because normally I have no idea who any of them are. So I'm excited for him. And with Device, I'd heard of him a few times, and from what I gather, he's very good. So excited for that one too. Don't really know much about Burke or Lehigh, even though we did play against him last season, right?
Yeah, I would have thought he'd have played against us. I mean, it was surprising. I didn't realize how long he's been at Forest. He's made almost 200 appearances for them. But like you, I mean, he wasn't a name that sort of,
Mm.
there's some players who are at other clubs in the Championship who were there for so long that you sort of know them quite well. But yeah, he kind of escaped my notice a bit.
Yeah, exactly right. But I know I won't judge until they get out there and I get to see them and see what they can do.
And I guess from Lehigh's point of view, very impressive. He scored twice against Arsenal in the FA Cup last season to dump them out, which is always positive to see. We always want players who can do well against Arsenal in the FA Cup. You never know when we're going to play them again. But I guess the main thing about all of them, we can talk about Long from Sheffield United, and Kane on loan from Chelsea as well in this. But the main thing we can see from all of them really is how young they are. I mean, apart from Lehigh, they're all 24, 23 years old, really. So it's really exciting to have that sort of young core of the team now.
Yeah, it is really good. It's promising to have, I guess, such faith in the youngsters and the young kids that we've brought through before. They've all been pretty good. Majority, I would say. Some haven't broken through, but the ones that have broken through have all come on good. Like Robertson, like Maguire. So yeah, it's good.
And Long coming from Sheffield United, you say Maguire there. We've obviously got a decent track record picking players from Sheffield United recently, and he was a bit of a surprise because I guess we don't really think of the goalkeeping situation as one that we needed to strengthen. I mean, in the sense, I suppose, that we had um, McGregor and Marshall last season. McGregor then leaves because we think, yeah, fair enough, we have to kind of trim the wage bill a bit. But you think, okay, so we've got Burden and Mannion sitting in reserve. you wouldn't have thought it'd be sort of a priority before getting a striker in even to bring in another goalkeeper. But from our point of view, I guess, given our opinion of the way Marshall's been playing, and I actually saw an interview with Marshall recently where he himself was saying if he was a supporter, he'd have doubts about himself. So it's not just an unfair sort of bashing of him. Like he's also admitting it that his form has been pretty average. From that perspective, it's actually pretty good to have someone who can challenge him for that number one shirt and not just have some kids who can be there if he gets injured.
Yeah, that's right. And often Adkins said like he's definitely going to be our number one keeper. I was like, okay, well, great. We're not even going to bother signing anyone. But no, it's good that we signed someone. And you're right to challenge for that position and push him if need be.
And yeah, over 100 appearances for Sheffield United. So he's only 23, 24, I think. But, so he's not just some kid who's kind of come up the ranks and gone out on loan a few times. He has played quite a bit for his parent club. And even when Adkins was there as manager, so Adkins already knows him pretty well and clearly rates him pretty highly to bring him across.
Yeah, yeah. It's good when it works out like that. When an old manager brings across a player, the same thing's happening in the MLS with Dean Monday right now. He's scoring for fun under Bob Bradley the way he did. Was it in Norway that he played
Yeah,
for?
in Norway, I can't remember the club name, but yeah, it's interesting how often that seems to happen that a manager will leave a club and then the new manager coming in won't rate a player or won't play them in the right way or the player actually gets sold, like happened with Diomande. But then and they might not replicate the form that they were showing, but then as soon as they go back to playing with that manager again at a new club,
Mm.
all of a sudden it comes back to life for them.
Yep. And can we not mention any of the lads at Villa with Steve Bruce, please?
Yeah. Um, And then the last one was Todd Kane coming in on loan from Chelsea. Not the Kane from London that I would have wanted us to get if we could have got someone, but um, we seem to like getting a loanee from Chelsea these days. I actually initially thought this was going to be a permanent because I think he's in the last year of his deal, and I suspect there's probably something in the contract that if he's halfway decent and we want him, we probably can get him for either a pretty cheap fee or however it's going to work. But he seems pretty versatile. He can play centre back, he can play full back, he can play on the wing, and I think he's already scored against Newcastle for us in pre-season, so seems to be off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, that's right. The goal will help his early confidence. Seems that Chelsea loanee is on everyone's books at the moment. But without three from last season, I don't think they really impressed all too much. So I'll be a little bit skeptical. It's considering he's been around at a few clubs as well. But again, I won't judge until I see him play.
So I guess that's the six signings we've made so far, mainly centered around bolstering the defense with a goalkeeper, some fullbacks, some centre backs, and then Milinkovic is probably the only attacking player that we've brought in. I guess the only other aspect that I wanted to touch on before we move on to just covering the departures from the club is it's actually really good that for once we're bringing in a lot of permanent signings. I feel like I get quite irrationally excited when I hear that we're permanently signing a player, just because I'm so used to, you look at like when Silva was here and we got in, Markovic, Nias, Ranocchio, all those guys, and they're all on loan. And then we finish the season getting
And
relegated
they
and they
all
all go
left.
back home.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chelsea guys weren't great last season, but again, we've got these guys playing 38, 45 games for us for the season and then going back to Chelsea. And it's kind of like, well,
Mm.
we're getting rid of all these players. Myler's leaving, McGregor's leaving, Odebajo's leaving, Hernandez. They're all leaving, and then on top of that, we've also got all the loanees going back, and it's almost like an entirely new team each season at the moment. So getting these permanent guys in, it's actually a really good thing to see.
Yeah, that's right. Especially that season you're talking about where we lost all those loanees that really were our whole team. So it's kind of hard to get stuff like to get chemistry going when you're seeing players go in and out so frequently. So yeah, you're right. It's good that we've got permanent signings now.
And so then, yeah, I guess we do on a downturn have to talk about the players that have left. It was pretty highly publicised that we tried to retain a couple of these guys. We offered contracts to Clark, to Dawson, to Hernandez, Larson, Odebajo, McGregor. Really, I mean, all of them except for Myler. Myler was the only one that we seemed to say we weren't going to offer a deal to. The rest of them, we tried to keep, and I saw it commented in a few places that yeah, if you look at them in isolation, you look at Larson, you say, okay, yeah, he wanted to go back to Sweden. You look at McGregor, yeah, he got the offer to go back to Rangers. Hernandez, he's done his 4 years with us. He's been a great servant. He's gone. In isolation, you go, yeah, okay, there's a reason each of them might have left. But for us to have not been able to keep any of them is just quite disheartening. And it would have been good, you know, I mean, we did that podcast towards the end of last season where we went, oh, if we were in charge, this is what we'd do, this is how we'd sort of sort it out, and it'd be fine. And one of the first things I said was, if we can get Hernandez just even to sign a 1 year deal and just convince him, look, we're going to try and make an effort for promotion, which is what we're kind of doing. Like we have signed 6 players, so we are looking like trying to make an effort. He hasn't signed for a club yet. Reach out to him, try and get him on a new deal, try and give him a 1 year, 2 year contract. I don't know what, you know it's just hard to stomach the fact that all these guys that we've had for a couple of years now have all left.
Yeah, and especially like such a proven championship goal scorer in Hernandez. Like even when he came back last season after having the whole thing off, he was scoring for fun nearly every single game. Um, I'm not overly disappointed with a few of them. Like although Larson was good last season, he's getting on a bit. Dawson, I'm not bothered at
Yeah,
all. Again, he's getting on. He wasn't playing great. Um, Obviously Hernandez is a big one. McGregor, he was great again getting on though, but I guess you kind of can give it a little bit of leniency when you're a keeper, like to age, so that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Myler, I love him as a club man, but his football
yeah,
just wasn't all that crash hot. Otabajo, I'm really angry at actually because he spent 2 years on the
yeah.
sideline injured, and I get the club's not in a great place, and I get it's probably not a great environment there right now, but to just up and leave like that, I don't know. I'm a little bit filthy at him,
And he
but
doesn't even like if he'd left and signed for a club within the next week, you go, okay, fair enough. He's been in talks. He's got this deal stitched
yeah.
up on the side. But the fact there must be something going on there because the fact that he turned the deal down and he's still looking for a new club just seems quite weird.
And the fact that he was so vocal about not
Yeah.
playing the end of the last season, saying he was fit, he was ready to go, like on his social medias and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely got to be something going on.
And then I guess Clark's the other one. I mean, it sounds like from all reports we were offering him a pretty lowball deal to stay. Um, and I mean, I can't imagine what it'd be like in his shoes where you've got consistent game time on offer at your hometown club that you've grown up supporting and still turning the offer down. So that's not me criticizing him necessarily. That's just me saying what must the situation have been that it was
Mm.
so bad that he decided to go overseas to Vitesse instead.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You wonder what the environment's like, and is it with the owners or is it with the fans and all that going on? Is it the manager? Don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because then on the same level, we've got all these guys who've just signed deals coming into the club, and you'd imagine if the club was really as horrible and toxic as some
They
people
wouldn't.
say,
Yeah.
these guys would be, I'm sure they'd be talking to people before signing. Like they'd be knowing what they're coming into to an
Yeah.
extent you'd expect.
Yeah.
And yet they're still happy to do so. So it's a mystery. It's a weird one. I guess sort of looking forward to the last few weeks of the window, we've had a few bids rejected for guys at Brighton, Oliver Norwood and Jiri Skalak, I believe is how you'd pronounce it. And then obviously also Connor Townsend, who there's been a bit of talk about us putting a few bids in for as well. So it looks like we're looking to get at least one more option in defence, and then also looking to strengthen in attack with Skalak being a winger and Norwood probably a creative midfielder, you'd say. And then obviously still needing a striker as well, probably to bolster because we've just got Campbell and Dicko really up top. What are your thoughts? Where do we need to strengthen really at the moment?
Well, it seems like every window, every club always is like, oh yeah, we need
We
a
need a striker.
striker.
Yeah.
But we genuinely do. Fraser Campbell's just not good enough. Dicko's just not good enough. Like they're probably good guys that haven't come off the bench, but as a starting striker week in week out, I can't see them doing the job for us to even challenge for promotion. I don't think they've got enough goals in them. Um, but yeah, we definitely need more going forward. We've we've really not got much. We've got what Milinkovic now. Who knows what the goes with Grosicki. I guess Irvine at attacking midfield is always always a good sign. Or unless Evandro is gonna play there, I'm not sure. Obviously Bowen as well, good, but like there's really not a lot of depth as well in that. That's kind of all we got there. So definitely need some more guys going forward, and I'll be stoked if we get Townsend back.
Yeah, it'd be good to have. I mean, just talking about Clark being a hometown guy,
Mm.
leaving the club, it'd be great to get Townsend back. I'm pretty sure he still lives in Hull, from what I've heard. So,
Yeah.
he clearly still loves the area, loves the club. I would expect. So it'd be great to see him back in Hull colours. I think I can't remember if he made that many appearances for the first team when he was here the first time around. He might have in the championship had a couple of games under Bruce, but I mean, if you think back to then, that's when we had Dudgeon was there as well and was okay. Obviously, then we had Figueroa in the Premier League, Rosinia even, and then bought Robertson. I think that was the season Townsend left, was we had Robertson and Figueroa,
Mm.
um, and it was just there was no way through for him. So I think he was released or sold or something. Um, so yeah, no, it'd be great to have him back. And then, like you say, we just need a bit more depth in a few areas. Atkins saying after the Newcastle game really that we're not going to be that competitive. I think we can confidently say, at least looking like how the squad's coming together, we're probably going to be better off than last season. Like we're not going to be, I would hope, fighting relegation as severely as we were, but if we want to push on from just being sort of a mid-table team that does nothing and really sorts a challenge for the playoff places, we definitely need at least another striker and another couple of attacking players, I'd say. Probably wingers. I mean, we've got lots of central players. We've got Henriksen, Irvine, Evandro, Terral. Like we're pretty decently stocked in attacking midfield. It's just those wide positions we don't have much. We've got Bowen, Grzycki, and now Milinkovic, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's right. Um, yeah, and again, have you heard anything more about Grosicki? Because
Well, it seems like a mystery. I mean, Atkins saying well, he's back in Poland with a family matter, and you kind of get a bit cynical and say, yeah, okay, is he trying to get a transfer or something? But apparently he's due back on Friday. So what's that? About 24 hours from now, British time. Um, who knows? I mean, he's always been pretty vocal about trying to get out, so you never know what's going to happen until the window closes, really.
yeah,
Um, so I guess that's all from the transfer side of things. We can look back now on our pre-season results so far, where it's been a pretty average set of results. It's pre-season. I don't know how much you read into the results, but we beat Maritimo 2-1 over in Portugal, and then lost to Braga 4-1. Lost to Rochdale back here 1-0 right at the end, and then had a pretty positive draw the other day against Newcastle, which I guess was the first real glimpse of most of the new signings, and basically it was a really settled team and looking like the team that's probably going to start against Villa first day of the season. And by all reports, really it was Evandro who stole the show.
yeah. Well, I don't look into preseason too much. I kind of get a little bit in my head, like I get like worried if we start losing in preseason, or ecstatic if we start winning. But I know deep down inside that it's not really reflective. But But yeah, the fact that we started probably what will be the squad against Villa, and got a good result against a mid-table Premier League side from last season's, that's promising. That's definitely promising. Yeah, and the Evandro was talked about, if he can keep fit, I think everyone's kind of the same opinion that he could be the man to lead the charge and to carry the team this year.
The other one who's kind of stepped up in preseason is Henriksen, and he's been pretty vocal about wanting to take on the captaincy this season, which is an interesting one because really we don't have a captain since Dawson's left. I know I think Lehigh might have been in a leadership sort of role at Forest, but Adkins sort of talking about wanting to share the captaincy around or the leadership around. It's kind of I don't know if I'm really that keen on like having a you see it in some of the other sports like Aussie rules and stuff where they'll have like three captains at the club and they'll take turns being captain for the game, and I don't know if that really works. But what's your take on whether Henriksen's kind of the sort of player you'd want to see captaining?
Well, when we first had him and he was playing more up front, he was definitely not captain material. But at the end of last season, when we moved him into the more central midfielder role, he played really, really good. And obviously that's continued on throughout preseason. if he can play that good week in week out, and if he wants to be captain, if he's ready, if he's up for it, then I'm more than happy for him to do it.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a very interesting season. I sort of predicted last season that he'd have a really good season. He seems that sort of guy that he's a very technical player, but Premier League's probably a level just above him. But Championship, I really thought he'd have a great season, and he didn't quite do it last season. He probably sort of started to towards the end of the season, like you're saying. So maybe it's this season where he'll kind of get used to the pace and the physicality of the Championship and can really become one of those important players for us. Terrell's another one where I think he looked good in flashes last season, but I'm really hoping he can sort of step up this season as well. And like we've already said, I mean, Evandro sounds like he's had a big preseason. Sounds like he didn't go back to Brazil. He's stayed in Hull. He's worked hard. It's which is great to see because he's one of those guys. He came in because he was a Silver signing and he knew Silver well. Like we talk about players going where their old managers were, and he's sort of been left behind by Silver. So you wouldn't blame him if he was kind of like Rajicki and he just sort of down tools and wanted to get out. But
Yeah,
credit to him, he seems to be trying really hard for us.
yeah, that's right. Seeing that Instagram story of him saying that he stayed in Hull and he worked hard is heaps promising. It's really good.
And so then that sort of wraps up all our preseason results. Next week we'll look ahead to the Villa game. We'll wrap up our last preseason result. We'll wrap up if there's hopefully any further signings ahead of our first game of the season. But we just sort of wanted to cap things off today. I mean, you touched on it in the opening for the show. The announcement that Tigers TV is going to be in effect for this season is really huge news for us here in Australia, and I feel sometimes that people in the UK maybe don't appreciate just how much it means to us to be able to actually watch the team week in, week out. Don't have the luxury, well, I shouldn't say we don't have the luxury of going to the games because obviously there's a lot of hardship around going to the games at the moment without concessions and all those issues. But from our point of view, that we don't really have any other way to watch the team. It's quite a huge thing, and it was quite difficult for us last season when the club decided not to do it. So it means so much that they're doing it this season. So what was your feelings when it was first announced, and what it means for the coming season?
Yeah, I don't think it's really explainable how big that is for us. Like we'll sit here and watch dodgy streams off dodgy Indian betting websites or something, or we'll pay a truckload to watch a QPR stream or a Burton stream or something like that. But so this is enormous. I'm excited. I'm really, and the fact that it's not just the dodgy one camera thing is even better. Like we've got multiple camera angles, we've got commentary. I assume will be biased as hell commentary, which is great because we love that.
Oh, I was haunted last season when we got that QPR stream where they had their own commentators biased as all hell as you're saying, and I think
Mhm.
it was the gate they won it right at the end. I think from memory it was like
Was it 3-2?
yeah something like that, and they were just going off their heads at the fact that they'd won, and you see they're going this makes it even worse. So having our
Yeah,
own commentators when we win the games it's gonna be better, and when we lose it they're gonna be pissed off as well. So that's gonna be fine. Yeah, it'll be great.
yeah, exactly. I'm really looking forward to it.
And that's the thing. I mean, from our point of view, I almost it's funny when we get relegated from the Premier League. I'm almost more upset because it means I can't watch the team than I am
Exactly.
anything else. Like,
Hmm.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who go, oh, I'm pissed off because we're now in the championship. We're not playing against the best teams, and that's certainly part of it. But for me, it's always the main thing. Well, now I can't watch the team each week, and it feels like you're much more detached from what's going on. Like, and that's probably part of the reason the podcast tailed off last season because the streams became harder to get. The results were sort of like plateauing out. We weren't going to get relegated, and it was really hard to stay connected to the team. So
Yeah,
having it this season where we can actually watch the team week in, week out is just going to be huge. And you look at the reactions in the group, it's the most engaged the group's been in months, and it's clear to see that everyone's absolutely stoked that this is being brought in.
yeah, exactly right. The thing with keeping everyone into it, that's exactly right. Like we can't watch the team, we can hardly listen to it. Um, so yeah, it's now that we're able to watch games, everyone will be heaps more involved, and it'll just be a lot. Just the feeling within the whole Australia group's going to be a lot more better.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for coming on for our first episode of this season, Mitch.
No worries. Can't wait. Can't wait to see how we go.
No worries, and thank you everyone for listening in. We'll be back this time next week to preview our first game of the season against Aston Villa, up against Steve Bruce once again to open the season. And until then, come on, City! You've been listening to the official Hull City Australia podcast. For more discussion, join us on Facebook in the Hull City AFC Australian Supporters Group, or follow us on Twitter at Hull City AFC Oz. The music was created by Amber and Black.
City's on fire. We're going higher and higher. There's no turning back 'cause you're out.